Good morning. I'm Arlene, DeCook, Ruhala, and it is October of 2020, and I'm going to tell you a wonderful, wonderful story. It's an old story that happened about 400 years ago, and sometimes it's called the Thanksgiving story, sometimes a Mayflower story, a Pilgrim story. The time period of my story I'm going to tell you is from 1600 to 1627. And we're going to go from England to Holland, the Netherlands, and America on this storytelling. I'm going to do it through the eyes and ears of an ancestor of mine, Elizabeth Hopkins, who lived 400 years ago. And I just want to tell you a little bit about my dress. I have this blue dress. Some people are surprised. They thought the pilgrims wore black dresses, but they were English people, and they wore very bright colors, and an apron, and then the women had a little cap like this. This would hold their hair in place, and they put it on like this, and be tied in the back, and then they would put their hat on like this. Now I am Elizabeth, and I wanted to introduce you to my family. But before I do that, here you can see the women wearing colors like this color like I have on. And this is my family. I'll show you a picture of them. Got it right here. Here it is. This is Stephen Hopkins, my husband, and myself, Elizabeth. And Constance is our oldest child, and this is Damaris, and this is Giles. And we lived in England, and we went to America. So that is my family. Now, what I have to do first in my story, I'm going to go back to America in the 1600s. And along the east coast of America, there were Native American tribes, and they had beautiful land, and they grew vegetables and lived there. And in the early 1600s, there were people from England and Europe coming over on ships to see this new land, to explore it. And one day in the Wampanoag Indian tribe village, the ship came in. Can you see that little ship right there? They never saw anything like this before. And it came closer and closer and landed, and they looked, and here these English people got out looking like these people here. They had never seen people like that before. And these ships went along the coast, but the Wampanoag, what they did, they got out of their ship, the English people did, and tried to communicate, but they didn't have the same language. And then they encouraged some of the men to go on their ship. And then when they got on the ship, they pulled anchor, and they took them over to Spain, and then eventually to England. One of those Indians is going to be a very, very important part of the story, which I'll tell you later. Let's see here. We're going to go to England now, about 1608. And at that time, the king ruled, and everyone had to go to the king's church. And there was a group of people who, they wanted to worship God in their own way. And they started meeting secretly and having their little service and worshiping the way they wanted to. Well, the king heard about this, and he said, these people have to be thrown out. They have to go to my church. And a couple of times they went to prison, jail, and then they said, we can't stay here anymore. We have to worship God the way we want to. So what they did, in the middle of the night, they made arrangements for a ship from the Netherlands or Holland to come over, and they got on that ship and they went to Amsterdam. And they were in Amsterdam for a little while, and then they said, there's more jobs. It'd be better for us to go down to Leiden. So they stayed in the Netherlands and went to Leiden. And they lived for 12 years. And they were treated well by the Dutch people. Of course, they had to take the lowest paid and the hardest jobs because they were the last one to arrive. And then after a while, what happened is that the children started talking Dutch instead of English. And then they wanted to dress like the Dutch children. And these separatists, they were called, they said, we're losing our Dutch way. We have to go, there's only one place where we can worship God the way we want and live the way we want to, and that's in America, because America is being talked about going there. And so arrangements were made. There was one of the pilgrims there, we're going to call them pilgrims, had gotten contact with Thomas Weston in England, and he would provide the ship with the demand that when they got to America, they had to work 7 years for Tom Weston for this company. They didn't have any money. So they said, well, we'll go ahead. So one day here, they leave their group there in Leiden. And what was really kind of sad, even families were split up. There was one family, mom and dad said, well, we'll go, but we're going to leave our children over here because we don't know what it's going to be like. It was unknown, and they were afraid. And anyway, this smaller group now of 35 people, they got on the ship. It was called the Speedwell. And they went to Southampton, England. And there, they were to meet others, and they were going to go across the ocean, Atlantic Ocean, to America. Now, what had happened, they were going to go earlier in the season, and it is now getting into September. And the Atlantic Ocean has storms, big storms. And so it was a risk. So the Speedwell, it goes out, and a little ways, and the Captain Jones said, we're having problems here. We got to go back. I don't think the ship will make it. So they go back to another port. And they get off, and they stay there for a while, and made the repairs, and the ship goes a second time out. And out there, and then it was having problems, so they came back. There was a Mayflower ship there too. Here's Mayflower. It was a beautiful ship, a big ship. It was used for transporting wine, so it was a sweet-smelling ship. And the captain here said, everyone get off the Speedwell and get on this boat and go to America. We cannot go on that Speedwell boat. And the Hopkins family got on with 200 people in a small ship, and they had to live down below the deck. And it started out, it is now September. The storms are coming. And they start this brave, there's no turning back, to America. And they get out in the middle of the ocean. It was very kind of smooth sailing. Let's see, I think I have another picture here of the ship. Yeah, here they are. And it could be pleasant, but the crew, they were kind of rough, tough people, and they were very kind to the passengers. And then they said the storms are coming, and in this period of year, I was pregnant with a baby, 9 months, and I went into labor and had a baby boy. Was born on the ship, the only baby to be born on the ship. And we called him Oceanus. We continued on the voyage. We hit a terrible, terrible, terrible storm. I've got a wonderful picture of that. You can see the Mayflower ship tossing and turning. We thought we were going to go down. It was a mast broke. Luckily, they used some of the equipment that they were going to build houses with to prop it up. And they just hunkered down underneath and waited for the most. So it's taken them over 60 days. And they had someone all of a sudden said, land ho! And we all jumped forward and looked across. And we looked and we could see land. And we were all excited. And we had 60 days in the ship, hadn't been on land, food was running out, land. So they moved into the shore, and it was Cape Cod. And they have to go down to Virginia. They had a contract with Virginia, which is south of New York City. And so the captain said, what we're going to do now, we're going to go down the coast to Virginia. And they went down the coast, and then bad weather, shoals, those are rocks there, and the wind's blowing, and the ship then was, rocking, and it was being blown to the shore, and would have crashed. So the captain said, we're going to turn the ship around and go back to Cape Cod. And they went in there where the waters were still. And when they were there, the first thing they did was get off that boat. And the women, the children, everyone got off. And on land, can you imagine 60 days with not being on land? They were so happy to be there. And the women were washing clothes because they wore the same clothes for 60 days. And the men started, the group went around, kind of looking around to see where, if there was anyone else there. They didn't know. They were a little bit scared because they thought there might be people living there. And all of a sudden they saw just this woods and the beach and nothing else, no one around. But then they found on the beach, it was some, the Indians had buried some corn seeds, vegetable seeds, and covered it with sand. In a small little group, Stephen Hopkins was one of them, and they uncovered, and they said, I don't know if we should take this because it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to someone else. There's people here somewhere. But they said they would not survive without it. So they took it and put it on the ship, and the ship explored, went to another place, and they did find some Native Americans on the beach, and they were afraid, and they ran away from them. And they sent some people exploring where can we land. Well, they went in, and they saw a cleared spot. It was all cleared, and this was a place that we were going to be. It was a place that the Indian village had been. And the story with that is, what happened with these Viking ships coming in, a virus, it was smallpox. In that village, everyone died because they had no immunity to this smallpox. And so here they have this land, and the ship gets out, and it's getting into December now. It's getting late. And they said that we'll live on the ship. There were going to be a few living, they built a little house, little hut, and then wait and build our homes in the springtime. Well, what happened? The people on the ship, the mothers, the fathers, they got very, very sick. And the 200 people got down to half of that. And then more died. So then you had an abundance of children. We had children to kind of survive this better than the adults did. And they had 35 children, and I think it was 4 women. I was one of them, and a few men. This is the beginning of a colony in America. And come springtime, they got out, they started building. They're getting off the ship. You see them getting down the ship. And one thing I want to tell you about it, before they got off the ship, they said, we have to have a government. We're not part of the Virginia colony. So they made the Mayflower contract, it's called, and which it said all of us are equal. And we had a election. Whoever gets the most votes wins, and Governor Bradford won. And then just the men signed it. The women did not. And I have a copy of that. This is what the Mayflower contract looked like. And there's all the names of the people who signed it. And this was kind of the first beginning of the American Constitution, of treating people equally, and everyone had a vote, except the women, and whoever got the most votes won. So it got to warmer weather, and then they started building their homes. And this is Stephen Hopkins. You can go to the Plymouth Plantation today, and you can see this little village there. We went, as a family, as a family, and we visited Stephen Hopkins' house, and we said, oh, we're cousins of yours. And then he took us in and told us and talked to us about it. And this was much later, 400 years later. And then Squanto came one day, and he said they had never seen a Indian before, and he said, welcome. And he could speak English. He could understand English. So he came to live with them. He showed them how to plant their vegetables, their corn, and he kept communicating with other tribes nearby so that they could communicate. And then they take Stephen Hopkins and other men would go visit the Wampanoag, another tribe nearby, and they could communicate because Squanto he understood English. He could English and the Native American language. It was that key. If that hadn't happened, they would not have been able to survive. But they survived, and then they said, let's have a celebration. It's in November. Our corn grew. We've got food. We're going to be able to make it. And they invited the Native Americans to come, and they came, and they had this is called the first Thanksgiving, where they ate together. And then later, they built their houses. And you can go visit Plymouth Plantation today. They have a replica of this village, what it's like. And that's kind of the beginning of America. This group of people stayed. Others came, other tribes came, but the key to their survival was Squanto, because they were able to communicate with the Native Americans. And that is the story of Mayflower story, Thanksgiving story, the Pilgrim story, and it's all of us. I've got some children out there, and you children you all came from somewhere else. You're all part of Americans. We all came from somewhere else, some other country, some other state. And so I'm just going to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and you were good listeners, and I enjoyed being with you. Thank you very much.